Hi, my name's Josh Murray. I'm an engagement officer with Cycling UK, and today we're going to take a journey from East Belfast at C.S. Lewis Square across the Maritime Mile over to Sailortown as part of our Roots and Roots project. We've been able to create this route and project thanks to funding from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Our aim is to connect the communities of East Belfast and Sailortown through this journey, telling stories and showing the history and heritage of the areas and the industries that used to shape the place and the people. As part of the project, we're working with a number of different partners. We're working with the Eastside Partnership, Maritime Trust and Sailortown Regeneration. Today we're going to catch up with some representatives and find out a bit of history about the areas and a bit about what they're currently doing.
Oh well, yes, East Belfast is absolutely chocker full of talent from the past and currently. I mean, like, we're standing in C.S. Lewis Square, which celebrates the work of one of Northern Ireland's most famous literary giants. All of the statues that are here that can celebrate Narnia and tell the story of the Pevensey children going through the wardrobe. This square used to not exist, obviously. Where we're standing here was like the heart of industrial East Belfast. Just across the bridge behind me was the largest rope works in Europe. There was a distillery around here, just within yards from where we're standing now. See, we're in spitting distance of the shipyard as well. And just up to 30 or 40 years ago, every morning at 8 o'clock, this road would have been absolutely packed with people making their way to factories and mills, just to start their day's work. And it was a real industrial heartland.
So right now we're cycling on Mccart Walkway, which connects the Cumber Greenway and the Conswater Greenway. This was actually a former railway line, and believe it or not, there was a big accident here back in January 1945. It was the worst train crash in Ireland since 1889. 22 people were killed and 27 people were injured. But now it's a real popular spot for walkers, cyclists and the local community. This mural here depicts the railway crash that happened back in 1945, Mccart. It was created last year by Blaze FX in partnership with Eastside Community and also the City Council. It's a lovely piece of art. So here behind us we'll have the famous cranes, Thompson and Goliath. So a couple of known facts. Goliath's the older of the cranes, produced in 1969, but the smaller of the cranes at only 96 metres. Thompson, the younger crane, produced in 1974, is taller at 106 metres. Back in the day there used to be nearly 35,000 employees working in these shipyards, but unfortunately the last ship was launched in 2003 and it's now just used for structural design.
This is a special place for me because I haven't actually stood on this spot since 1994. I used to work in the shipyard. In fact, I served my time in the shipyard. I was an apprentice from 1986 till 1990, and then I was a planner for 4 years after that. So I was in the drawing office to start off with, which is now the Titanic Hotel. And I was in the drawing offices there, and then I went to the manufacturing shops, which are no longer here. They're all gone. But back in the day, we seen 12 ships being built here. And the strange thing about it is, it was a place where, for many people, their Christian faith was nurtured as well, and that happened to me as well. Whenever I was in the training centre, I remember us being given New Testaments whenever we finished our basic training for steelworking and welding in the training centre. And then whenever I was in the shops, the manufacturing shops, every lunchtime I would have went for 15 minutes to a Bible study in the stagers hut, which was in the build-up shop in the manufacturing shops just further on down that way near the Salmon crane. And we would have had a Bible study every day, and it was led by a guy called Albert, and he was brilliant with the Bible. And I have to say that what he did was something very special. and it's something that I still treasure to this day.
Well, if you go back about 100 years ago, it would have been, Harland and Wolff would have been at their prime. So they would have been the biggest shipyard in the world at one time, employing over 50,000 people from sites across Belfast, Derry, London, Southampton and Glasgow. So they had a huge operation, and most of it was based here from sort of where the SSE Arena is now to the far end of the Queen's Road. So it would have been a huge operation. Belfast Harbour really started developing the land in the 1800s. So straightening the river, reclaiming some of the land, and this all became an island called Queen's Island. And then it started becoming an area for shipbuilding. There was a People's Park on it at one point with a Crystal Palace, and then it was named after Queen Victoria for her visit to the city in the 1840s. SS Nomadic is probably a great example because it's the largest Titanic artefact in the world, and it was built to service RMS Titanic, so it was a sort of a taxi, a tender ship to take passengers from Cherbourg in France out to the Titanic before they went on their maiden voyage. And it's a quarter of the size of Titanic and many of the same finishes and features and details. So you're really stepping on board, you know, an amazing passenger liner. HMS Caroline's one of the oldest remaining ships from the Battle of Jutland in World War I. So it wasn't built in Belfast, it was built in Birkenhead, but it's been in Belfast since the 1920s. So it used to be the headquarters for the Naval Reserves and is now a museum ship. So it's really interesting. But then as you cycle or walk around, you can see the sort of the heritage of the shipyard everywhere, from the docks, the Hamilton dock where we are today, up to the Alexandra dock and the Thompson dock, which at one point the Alexandra dock was the biggest dock in the world until it was surpassed by the Thompson dock, which was built for Titanic and Olympic, and you can go down into the bottom of it. And there's other things like the Great Light, which is on the walkway between the slipways and HMS Caroline, and it's one of the largest lighthouse optics in the world. And it's very rare that you would see a lighthouse on display like this. So we light it, and it's part of the Titanic walkway, and it's an amazing addition to the area.
18th September 1977, started as an apprentice fitter. I served 4 years there, leaving the training centre after 1978 and went out to different departments, ending up in the tool room as one of their tool fitters in the engine works, which is just across the road there on Queen's Road. As a 16-year-old lad coming in as a first-year apprentice, the size, the colossal shapes of these just blew me away. And obviously the size of the cranes. As a youngster, I was always involved in wee small engineering projects. Like, I had my own mechano set. The first thing I used to do was build cranes with my mechano set. So great to see change. But the unfortunate thing is now we no longer have that capacity to be able to make something, either building ships or building aircraft or building cars, where we can actually build a complete unit and either sail or fly or drive away from. All we make now is just small components of, and then they go on further on for other assembly.
We're down here now at the Harbour Marina. This place looks completely different to what it used to look like back in the day. Back in the day there would have been big ships and busy with sailors. Now it's a bit more commercialised with the SSE Arena and some fancy luxurious apartments and private boats. We're here now at another landmark synonymous with Belfast, the Salmon of Knowledge, or as most people know it, the Big Fish. This was commissioned back in 1999 to celebrate the regeneration of the Lagan side area, and it was created by a mosaic artist called John Kindness. So we can see from the tiles that they're full of pictures and stories from back in the day, and they all tell a story of what the area used to look like through images and text and newspaper cuttings. This is Mccart Engraving docks. These docks were built in the early 1800s. There's two of them, named 1 and 2. Number 1's still the largest graving dock in Ireland today. As you can see, this area has been repurposed again. It's nothing what it used to look like, and it's now quite commercial.
Daddy was a bicycle man. Could have took a scrap from anywhere and made a bike. And he kind of, everyone knew him because most of the dockers went to work on bikes. There wasn't loads of cars or anything. So everybody knew him to get their punctures fixed and whatever else they needed, their brakes and stuff like that. And a lot of people came to buy bikes off him that he had made if they liked them. From a could walk, I think I maybe took 2 minutes to learn. That's God's truth. He took you out to the door, you sat on it, he fixed the seat that you were comfortable, that you could reach the pedals. Now I'm going to walk along beside you and I just don't go easy. And before you knew it, you were at the top of the lane, he was still at the door.
But really Sailor Town was called it because obviously it was the waterfront, and people, you know, a job in a boat was easy enough to get at that stage. So a lot of people here go back generations, basically travelling around the world. In the days when the ships had to be physically loaded and unloaded, so I mean there was a huge amount of work, back-breaking work I have to say. Then there were a lot of people who maybe took up jobs as cabin boys, you know, on boats, and ended up becoming able-bodied seamen, donkey men, all those names that you have for people that travelled everywhere. Talked a lot there about Sailor Town and about how it was a hive of activity, but when the motorway was implemented in the late 60s, early 70s, most of the houses were knocked down and people were moved out all around Belfast. They were moved out to all the big housing estates, and tower blocks were built at the time. Built in 1880, and it was closed in 2001 after a vociferous campaign with local people who were really quite annoyed about it being closed. Actually obtained a lease on it in about 2006 from the Diocese down in Connor, but it was in a pretty bad state. A few years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, we started on a process of restoration. So we have got it now to the stage where it is able to be open for meanwhile use. We still have a way to go on it. The Sailor Town regeneration is not just about the church, it's about bringing a whole area back to life, and not just an area you know, full of hotels and offices. This is about the people of Belfast. It's about bringing a community back to the area.
I've thoroughly enjoyed myself today, travelling from East Belfast across the Sailor Town, taking in the maritime area, learning about all the history and the heritage. It's been great to speak to people like Colin and Bernie and Jonathan and learn about their stories and their lives and their experiences. It's also been great to speak to people like Lisa and Terry and Siobhan and find out what their organisations are doing, and it's been great to partner up with them. I hope you've enjoyed this journey, and I hope this will encourage you to get down and take part in our Roots and Roots project. All the best.